Welcome back to the Exposure History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. This is Abraham Lincoln's life mask, created 2 months before his assassination in 1865. Made of plaster, it captures every line, wrinkle, and hollow in his face, providing a disturbingly true view into the physical toll the Civil War and presidency had taken on him. This was Richard Nixon's final meal in the White House before his resignation in 1974. Pineapple slices covered with cottage cheese and served with a glass of milk. Simple and melancholy, it reflected the sad mood of the day as the nation's 37th president prepared to resign in disgrace. This rare photo depicts the first Hollywoodland sign, which was created in 1923 to promote a real estate development. It eventually became a symbol of the film industry. The land portion was removed in 1949, leaving only the iconic Hollywood sign that we see today on the Los Angeles hillside. This beautiful photograph shows the 1924 Miss America pageant participants dressed in lavish gowns and gorgeous headpieces. These women posed confidently on a wooden stage, competing in a new tradition. The Miss America pageant had only begun 3 years before, in 1921, in Atlantic City. This rare courtroom photograph from Al Capone's 1931 trial shows onlookers, some of whom are thought to be mobsters, hiding their faces under hats to avoid detection. Their uneasy demeanor and attempts to remain inconspicuous reflect the heated atmosphere surrounding the trial of one of America's best-known gangsters during the Prohibition period. This colorful 1908 photograph depicts what children's playgrounds once looked like in New York City's Tompkins Square Park. It captures a time when play was simpler and safety requirements were almost non-existent. Only ladders, poles, and genuine turn-of-the-century adventure. This amazing shot depicts investor Walter Thornton trying to sell his car for $100 after losing everything in the 1929 stock market crisis. Standing next to a sign of desperation, he represents the financial catastrophe many people faced. Interestingly, Thornton later responded by establishing a successful modeling business in New York. This beautifully detailed menu is from the Plaza Hotel's Thanksgiving feast in 1899. It features fine meals like partridge, oysters, and orange jelly tarts, providing an insight into the Gilded Age's extravagant dining habits. This was not your typical turkey and stuffing Thanksgiving. This vintage photograph of Huntington Beach, California, exposes an unexpected past. Oil derricks formerly dotted the coast, towering behind sunbathers and swimmers. Beachgoers and industry coexisted on the shore for much of the 20th century. These oil rigs lingered on the landscape until they were eventually removed in the 1980s. This 1930s photograph of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade shows a towering Uncle Sam balloon drifting above the crowd. With old buildings in the background, it evokes the elegance of early parade days. Uncle Sam's stern look, timeless, and perhaps a little bored of drifting through New York's cold sky. Before arriving in New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty's head was displayed at the 1878 Paris World's Fair. Visitors gathered around a gigantic sculpture in a public park, admiring its size and artistry. It was used as a promotional piece to raise funds for the statue's entire construction. This remarkable photograph depicts Mount Rushmore before it became a national icon, a naked granite cliff with no presidential faces. Construction began in 1927 and lasted until 1941, eventually transforming the mountain into a gigantic monument to 4 U.S. presidents. This is how it looked before history was chiseled in. This is Lemuel Cook, one of the last known living American Revolutionary War veterans. His serious attitude and elderly features, captured in the mid-1800s, represent a centuries-long life. He observed history personally, including the war for American independence from the British. Remarkable legacy. This photograph depicts Franklin Delano Roosevelt at the start of his first presidential term in 1933. He sat firmly at his desk, armed with papers and a microphone, ready to address a nation in distress. It symbolizes the start of his New Deal leadership during the worst of the Great Depression. This photograph depicts how football helmets were tested in the early 1950s, with someone bracing for impact from a swinging object. Eyes closed, helmet on, nerves of steel. It was a primitive but sincere effort to improve player safety long before sophisticated equipment and concussion protocols existed. This powerful photograph captures the deck of the Queen Elizabeth, which was packed with American soldiers returning home from World War II. The atmosphere was one of tiredness and relief as thousands rushed together, anxious to see loved ones again. It signaled the end of war and the start of peace. This single panel of glass is the only one known to have survived the World Trade Center blasts on September 11th. Now housed in a museum, it serves as a fragile yet powerful reminder of resilience in the face of destruction, a small fragment of the towers that once stood tall in New York City. This 1942 photograph depicts the FBI's massive fingerprint file room, which featured endless rows of tiny drawers stretching across a cavernous space. Each drawer included unique fingerprint records, which were manually sorted and cataloged. Before computers, this was the foundation of criminal identification, a massive paper trail created exclusively by human hands. This photograph shows astronauts David Scott and Neil Armstrong moments after their Gemini 8 capsule successfully splashed down in the Pacific Ocean in 1966. They are floating in recovery gear, awaiting collection after a difficult operation. They appear calm and composed, as if they were true space pioneers. Wilma Smith, named Queen of the Vineyards, can be seen laughing beneath a mound of grapes in this amusing 1930 photograph. It was a whimsical celebration of California's grape harvest, with Wilma transformed into a physical part of the crop, a quirky and joyful snapshot of vintage festival charm. The first aerial photograph in history was taken by James Wallace Black in 1860 from a hot air balloon floating above Boston. The painting, titled "Boston as the Eagle and the Wild Goose See It," provides a bird's-eye view of the city before airplanes existed. This vintage ticket book from Disneyland's opening day in 1955 contained entry and ride passes for numerous park activities. For $4.75, it provided entry to the happiest place on Earth. Today, it is a treasured piece of theme park history and a sentimental throwback to simpler times. This historic 1921 photo shows over 80,000 people jammed into Boyle's 30 acres in Jersey City for the heavyweight title fight between Jack Dempsey and George Carpentier. The crowd forms a sea of hats around the small boxing ring below. Dempsey won boxing's first $1 million gate. This remarkable photograph depicts the Dale Creek Bridge in 19th century Wyoming, a high, narrow trestle bridge so unstable that trains had to crawl across it at 4 miles per hour. Suspended high over rugged terrain, it was both an engineering marvel and a harrowing experience, not for the faint of heart. In 1964, 17-year-old Randy Gardner set the world record for the longest period of time without sleep, staying awake for 264 hours. He appears to be surprisingly aware in this photo, and he uses round things to demonstrate his mental sharpness. The experiment astounded scientists and remains one of the most intense sleep tests ever carried out. This dramatic 1865 photograph depicts members of the 107th United States Colored Infantry, an African-American regiment that participated during the Civil War. They stand proudly outside a wooden building, dressed in uniform and holding rifles, as an enduring symbol of courage, dignity, and their important part in the struggle for independence. Abraham Lincoln wore this same top hat on the night of his assassination at Ford's Theater in 1865. Tall, distinctive, and easily identifiable, the hat has become a potent symbol of his legacy. It stands as a chilling reminder of one of the most horrific events in American history, having been carefully preserved. More than just a fashion item, it symbolizes Lincoln's leadership during a time of national crisis, as well as his lasting impact on the country. Standing as a solemn relic, it tells a story of valor, sacrifice, and the high cost of preserving the Union. This flawless ticket from the renowned 1969 Woodstock Festival has been verified as a perfect gem, mint 10, making it a scarce and valuable piece of musical history. Originally priced for only $18 for 3 amazing days, it provided access to one of the most legendary events in American counterculture. The ticket, sealed in an appraiser's container for preservation, has become a treasured item that embodies the spirit of peace, love, and music. Its flawless condition adds to its attractiveness, providing a physical link to a watershed period that continues to inspire music fans and collectors over 5 decades later. This joyful moment captures Althea Gibson, the first Black American to win a Grand Slam tennis title, celebrating in a parade following her historic victory. Dressed stylishly, she smiles and kisses adoring spectators from a convertible, a symbol of pride and advancement. Her remarkable triumph at the 1956 French Open broke down racial barriers in the sport and paved the way for even greater success. She went on to win Wimbledon and the U.S. Open, cementing her place as a trailblazer in tennis and other industries. This photograph depicts more than simply sports brilliance. It also represents a significant step toward equality and long-term societal transformation. This image depicts in-flight entertainment in the 1960s when small TV screens were hung above the seats, just where today's overhead bins are located. Passengers had to crane their necks just to see a portion of the screen, making the experience far from comfortable. At the time, it felt futuristic and exciting. Watching a movie while floating over the sky was unusual, even if it came with a stiff neck. Compared to today's personalized screens and streaming options, it serves as a reminder of how far air travel has come and how much passengers were willing to tolerate in the name of innovation. This rare photograph shows the audience gathered for Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in 1863. Amidst a sea of top hats, Lincoln may be seen, hatless, near the top right, standing out just slightly. It is one of the few known photographs from that historic day. Blink, and you may miss him. This 1930 photo shows the Empire State Building rising into the New York skyline, its top floors still surrounded by scaffolding. Capturing the scale of its construction, it reflects the ambition of the era. Just a year later, in 1931, it officially opened as the world's tallest building. This remarkable 1800 map depicts the time it took to travel from New York to other locations of the United States, using isochronic lines to represent time. Reaching regions such as Illinois might take up to 6 weeks. Back then, there were no railroads or freeways, just rough paths, rivers, and primitive roads. Travel was slow, uncomfortable, and sometimes unpredictable, depending on the weather, terrain, and available conveyance. This map shows how far we have come in terms of speed and connectivity. What used to take weeks may now be achieved in hours thanks to modern highways, rail, and air travel. This photograph depicts the cabin of a Handley Page Type W passenger airliner from the 1930s. It resembled an antique train car with wooden seats, short corridors, and primitive overhead luggage racks. Air travel was still new and far from glamorous, but it signaled the start of commercial aviation's journey. This remarkable photograph shows the proud construction workers who erected the Chase Manhattan Bank, grouped on numerous levels of the building's steel framework. Taken during the early stages of New York's skyscraper boom, it exemplifies the laborers' collaboration, grit, and boldness in shaping the city's iconic skyline. With no safety harnesses in sight, they stood boldly on beams far above the earth, their friendship clear in every stance. Before hard hats and restrictions, this was simply another day on the job. And what happened when the shift ended? It was time to relax, because this was their version of happy hour. The gravestone of President James Monroe, the 5th President of the United States, is located in Richmond, Virginia. The magnificent Gothic Revival-style edifice, sometimes known as the Birdcage, surrounds his tomb and serves as a distinctive and elegant homage to one of America's founding fathers. An American flag and wreath sit at its base, commemorating his legacy and contributions to the country. Monroe's remains were originally buried in New York before being reinterred in Virginia in 1858. Today, the site is a quiet, historic resting place frequented by individuals who recognize his contribution to early American history. This remarkable map, dated 1507, is the first to identify the continent as America. It was named after explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who helped prove that the New World was not part of Asia, as many had previously assumed. This map is particularly notable since it was the first to properly portray a separate Western Hemisphere and establish the Pacific Ocean as a unique body of water. It was a watershed moment in geographic understanding, influencing how the rest of the world perceived newly discovered territories. Before modern vehicle washes, one of the earliest and most unusual ways was driving cars through a circular water track. The Auto Wash Bowl, a 1920s design, featured a water-filled loop through which historic cars could cruise while mechanical jets rinsed them clean. It seemed more like an amusement park ride than a cleaning service. Long before conveyor belts and foam cannons became commonplace, drivers could experience the novelty of a moving wash system for only 25 cents. It may not have been the most efficient way, but it was certainly memorable, a colorful, splashy look into the origins of car wash innovation. This is Emma Lillian Todd, a true aviation pioneer and the first woman to design an aircraft. Todd exceeded expectations by designing and manufacturing her aircraft in the early 1900s, when flight was considered a risky and experimental endeavor. Although she never flew it herself, her design was successfully tested in 1910 with the assistance of a pilot. Todd's imaginative spirit and mechanical mind broke down barriers in a male-dominated sector, paving the way for future generations of female aviation professionals. Her aircraft may appear to be a strange contraption today, but it was a daring venture into the skies back then. This fascinating photograph, taken around 1930, depicts a meeting of the New York chapter of the Fat Men's Club, a social group whose sole requirement for membership was a weight of at least 200 pounds. The men, dressed in their finest, pose proudly for the camera. A. Rockwitz, 312 pounds. Comedian Eddie Carvey, 250 pounds. David Burns, 475 pounds. And F.C. Cooper, 351 pounds. Far from being a joke, these clubs were previously popular, celebrating enormous body sizes as emblems of riches and good living. The atmosphere was upbeat, the ties were close, and the friendship was as strong as the members themselves. This, the oldest known photograph of the White House, was shot in 1846. The image, taken when photography was still in its infancy, provides a unique peek into the early days of America's most renowned residence. Though grand on the outside, the inside wasn't quite as refined. Sewage systems were archaic, and poor cleanliness frequently made life inside the White House far less spectacular than one might assume. Nonetheless, this photograph serves as a poignant reminder of the building's durability over decades of change, having served as the backdrop to innumerable moments in American history, both noble and uncomfortable. This remarkable photograph depicts Civil War veteran Jacob Miller, who survived the unthinkable, being shot directly in the eyes during the Battle of Chickamauga and living to tell the tale. Against all odds, Miller not only survived the horrific injury, but also lived for an additional 17 years. His extraordinary tenacity made him a symbol of endurance and bravery, as evidenced by the star-shaped medal he proudly wore on his chest. Though the wound never healed completely, he carried his scar as a symbol of survival. His story is still one of the most amazing accounts from the Civil War. This remarkable photograph depicts Civil War veteran Jacob Miller, who survived the unthinkable, being shot directly in the eyes during the Battle of Chickamauga and living to tell the tale. Against all odds, Miller not only survived the horrific injury, but also lived for an additional 17 years. His extraordinary tenacity made him a symbol of endurance and bravery, as evidenced by the star-shaped medal he proudly wore on his chest. Though the wound never healed completely, he carried his scar as a symbol of survival. His story is still one of the most amazing accounts from the Civil War. This 107-year-old menu from Chris's Place in Alabama provides an intriguing glimpse into the past, as well as some rather unique culinary options. Located at 118 Dexter Avenue, the menu includes delicacies such as hot dogs for a nickel, pies for 10 cents, and if you're feeling daring, pig feet with orange juice. The costs seem almost unbelievable today, evoking a time when a full supper cost less than $1. This menu, framed and preserved, is more than just a list of foods. It's a delicious snapshot of American history, served with a side of nostalgia and Southern charm. This haunting image depicts New York City as seen from space on September 11, 2001. NASA captured this shot from the International Space Station, which shows a dense metropolitan area surrounded by water, with the outlines of rivers and beaches plainly apparent. What makes this image memorable is the column of smoke rising from Lower Manhattan, an eerie reminder of the awful events going below. From this vantage point, the turmoil and sadness of that day are captured in a single, terrifying image. It's a powerful moment caught in time, reminding us of when the world changed forever. This photograph provides a rare view into a college dorm room from 1910. Two young men sit side by side on a well-made bed, both dressed in formal suits, a far cry from today's casual student wear. The room is unexpectedly pleasant and individualized, with framed portraits, patterned wallpaper, and decorative accents that reflect their personalities. It feels more like a parlor than a dormitory. Their calm expressions and close seating imply a strong friendship, perhaps even one that lasts a lifetime. A calm moment caught in time, demonstrating that student life has always had its unique appeal. This photograph from 1903 depicts a significant moment in American history. A guy mowing the Capitol grass using a steam-powered lawnmower. Long before gas or electric mowers became commonplace, this clumsy but clever equipment represented the leading edge of technology. Plumes of steam were presumably emitted into the air as the mower chugged down the neatly manicured lawn, just feet from the halls of Congress. It's a quiet reminder of how much has changed and how much effort was put into even the most basic tasks. It's oddly charming while also being incredibly impressive. Just one of those bizarre views of the past that seems oddly pleasant. This 1904 snapshot depicts one of the first New York City tour buses, an open-air, double-decker vehicle that roamed the bustling streets with no walls, no seatbelts, and little regard for safety rules. Passengers sat on uncovered benches, taking in unrestricted views of the city's expanding skyscrapers and frantic bustle. These old buses provided a raw, realistic view of the Big Apple, complete with wind in your face and the occasional bump on the road. It was the epitome of adventurous sightseeing. No glass windows, no overhead speakers, just pure vibes, curiosity, and a rapidly growing city. In 1984, Boston saw a breathtaking sight, a giant dinosaur facsimile soaring through the sky, hung underneath a chopper. This amazing event commemorated the prehistoric giant's trip to its new home at the Boston Museum of Science. Residents watched in astonishment as it hovered above the city's skyline, resembling a scene from a sci-fi film. The dramatic airlift was more than just transportation. It was about bringing science to life in the most spectacular way possible. After all, seeing a dinosaur fly is not something that happens every day. One modest flight for man equals one enormous leap for museum exhibits. In 1929, a traffic signal on New York City's Fifth Avenue looked like this: a tall, elaborate clock-like building standing proudly in the center of a bustling thoroughfare. Surrounded by a flurry of antique vehicles and well-dressed pedestrians, it combined functionality and elegance. Even anything as simple as a traffic light was designed with an artistic flair at the time. There are no LED screens or flashing arrows, simply a stunning piece of urban design that helps manage the expanding turmoil of a busy city. It serves as a reminder that, in 1929, even municipal infrastructure was stylish. Who says traffic control can't be elegant? If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on anything.